Everyone thinks that teens in our world today use alcohol, tobacco, or drugs to cope with everyday struggles. You may think they do.
But they don't. Welcome to the But They Don't podcast, a podcast for teens by teens. Join us as we cover substance use prevention, mental health, community conversations, and more.
Welcome back to another episode of the But They Don't podcast. I'm Alyssa, and I'm solo for hosting duties this week. So, did y'all know that February was Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month? According to loveisrespect.org, 1 in 3 U.S. teens will experience physical, sexual, or emotional abuse from someone they're in a relationship with before they become adults. And nearly half of the U.S. college women report experiencing violent or abusive dating behaviors. That's why this month's podcast episode will be focused on bringing awareness to teen dating violence and more. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by a former youth board mentor, Breann, who is going to tell us about her new project. Breann, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be back.
I'm so glad you're back. Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I am actually a program director for a new organization called The Hiding Place. It is a channel out of Channel Missions. So Channel Missions is a nonprofit that's been around for 7 years. And like I said, this is a new channel. Over the past year and a half, we've been prepping and creating this new channel. So The Hiding Place is a safe property that is going to be used for women that are survivors of domestic violence and their children. So through our programming, we're offering emergency housing, counseling, and resourcing for aid. So we'll have an active hotline where people can call in and we will assess them, and then we will determine if they are eligible to be able to come on to our emergency housing facility. There are different types of phone calls that we could receive also, where we could help maybe change locks for a survivor, and she doesn't need that immediate need of emergency housing. But that is the goal. So I believe when this podcast airs, we actually would have been open. So February 1st, we'll be opening our doors and our hotline. So yeah.
That is so cool. So The Hiding Place, it sounds like a very much needed service in our area. How prevalent is domestic violence?
Yeah, so on average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner. So 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. So when you think about that, a group of women, looking at 1 in 4 women experience these things. So that's really important to us to recognize, especially in Pickens County.
Yeah, so what about teenagers? How does it affect them in high school?
Yeah, so I really want to talk specifically about this because a lot of people don't realize that domestic violence can start in high school. So first, before we start, let me just say we have to realize the statistics I'm going to be sharing are talking about real people, right? Mm-hmm. So your peers, your friends, the people you see in the hallway daily. With that being said, if you hear any of these signs and you recognize them in your relationship, please seek help. Know you're worthy of so much more than how you're being treated. Abuse does happen to high schoolers, and it is in high school and college that many of the domestic violence situations start. Wow. Okay, it's not something you really hear about, right? Mm-mm. So according to a 2019 survey done by the CDC among students who reported dating during that year, 1 in 12 experienced dating violence. Also, 1 in 12 reported that they experienced sexual dating violence as well. And it is a fact that female high schoolers are at a higher risk of experiencing this, but that does not mean it can't happen to your male friends in high school.
Yeah. So what are some potential warning signs that someone is in an abusive relationship?
Right. So first, I think we need to remember that dating violence does not always have to be physical, right? Mm-hmm. So, of course, there's the obvious, your partner is physically hurting you. So let's talk about some of the other ways. So your partner is constantly putting you down. Your partner shows extreme jealousy. Your partner has an explosive temper. Your partner starts to isolate you from family and friends. They don't want you to hang out with your girlfriends anymore. Your partner is making false accusations. Your partner shows possessiveness over you, or your partner is consistently telling you what to do and doesn't give you a choice. So there's a few different examples. So with emotional abuse, let's say a person is humiliating their partner in front of people, right? Mm-hmm. Or they're deliberately doing something to make the partner feel dismissed or overlooked threatening your partner, abuse over electronic devices, text message, social media. We all know that happens, right? But that can happen in a relationship as well. Some examples of physical dating violence: hitting, punching, biting, forced sexual activity, or sexual harassment. All of those things fall under that.
Wow.
And there's, of course, other examples that I didn't list. Any time your partner is controlling you or making you do something you don't want to do, that is abuse. And it's hard to realize that sometimes when you're in the situation, to realize that's what you're going through.
Yeah. So how can teenagers help educate their peers about dating violence and domestic violence?
Yeah, so for teenagers, if you see any of these signs happening to your friend, reach out and let your friend know that you're worried. I think that's important, showing them that support, that community. Help them recognize that the abuse is not normal and it's not their fault. Be supportive, listen, acknowledge their feelings, and be respectful of their decisions. It's important to connect your friend to some resources, connect them to the hiding place. Don't contact their abuser or publicly, make the abuser feel bad online or anything like that, because it could make it worse for your friend that's going through the abuse. And for parents, I also want to touch on that. I think it's important, if your child does come to you with these issues, listen, give support, accept what they're telling you. It's hard to accept that your child's going through abuse, but make sure you are willing to accept, you're willing to listen. Show concern for their safety, talk about the behaviors, not the person. Be informed about dating violence, and decide on the next steps together with your child. And I also think it's important to just touch on the fact that if a child or if a teenager is going through this type of violence in dating, there are some different consequences that can come up if they continue to be in that abuse. So depression and anxiety, tobacco, drug, and alcohol use. I know you guys talk about that a lot. That can lead to that. If you're in the abuse, you're not seeking help, and it is hard to seek help, but this is how it could affect you. Suicidal thoughts, and then eventually adult victimization can also occur as a consequence due to the abuse when you're in high school. It's tough. Domestic violence is tough for adults, and for teenagers, it's even tougher, right? Because you're going through all these different changes and life choices, trying to decide on colleges,
right,
trying to decide what you're going to eat for lunch, So thinking about abuse in a relationship is hard, and realizing and not being in denial about it is even harder.
Yeah.
Because no one expects for a high schooler to be abused in a relationship, right? It's tough. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's not something I would think of, like, when I'm with the people that I'm around on a daily basis at school.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We are excited to continue our conversations throughout the remainder of the month as we raise awareness about teen dating violence in an effort to prevent it from happening from the start. Thank you for coming, Breann, again.
Thank you for having me.
It was so great to see you again. I'm so excited. It's Channel Missions on social media, so we can keep up with your great work?
Yes. So Facebook and Instagram, you can find us at Channel Missions. We also have a website, channelmissions.org. And I do want to share the hotline with you guys. Now, for the hiding place specifically, our emergency housing is for adults, of course, just because high schoolers are typically, they're still living with their parents, right? So that does not mean you can't call the hotline. If you call the hotline and you're in high school, we're going to connect you with resources. We're going to help you start that discussion with your parents if you need help with that. So I do want to give you the hotline number. That number is 888-341-9568. And then if you have questions about Channel Missions, we have an office line as well. You can reach us at 864-424-7865.
And we can put that in the podcast description also. Thank you. So we all make sure to follow us on social media also for updates and upcoming events. We're working on a big event to kick off the summer, and we can't wait to share more details with y'all. We have our Facebook is Pickens County Youth Board. Instagram and TikTok is at We Are PCYB. Thank y'all. See you next time.